What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one we'll break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. We'll break down what's going on with the news affecting the market, so what you should be watching for as time goes on, especially on our economic calendar. But before I break down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So anyways, let's talk about what's going on with the market. And for SPY, looking at SPY, this thing was down about 0.15% for the pre-market thus far, but we're still holding above our 50 EMA on the 30 minutes time frame. So it's still trying to hold up. But the real question is, will this thing bounce and start pumping again, or are we about to see some kind of pullback? So I'll be breaking that down in just a couple of minutes. Right now, the S&P 500 is getting very close to a record, getting very close to those all-time highs. I still think it's very probable that SPY could reach them, so could the S&P 500, etc. The QQQ already reached the all-time highs, which is pretty insane, and there is still quite a bit of time until the year end and ends up just coming to a conclusion. So, we have a few more days for this week, then we just have like 4 days for next week. It is still very possible for the market to pump more, but like I said before, I would still be a little concerned for January, especially as the market's extremely greedy for now. Moving forward, Target made waves when it announced in September that it would close 9 stores across Seattle, New York, Portland, and the San Francisco Bay Area. And this is something that tends to happen, but right now you guys can see that they claim it has to do with crime and things like that. So that's still making the headlines. This is very important because of what's happening during this interview. And then on top of this, e-commerce had an industry-defying moments during the early days of the pandemic. People were stuck alone. Now people are free to go and do whatever they have to do. 57% of respondents at shopping sites were one of their top 2 destinations during this holiday season. So that's actually still up big time, even though we're seeing a big difference in the way that society is right now compared to the pandemic. We're still seeing big increases over the last 2 years and the last year relative to those periods. So it's very interesting to see. There's also some news coming out that at Walmart, it's basically going to be expanding its partnership with buy now, pay later provider Affirm. So that's some big news for them. And finally, when it comes to FedEx, there's some news coming out that they're lowering their fiscal revenue outlook for the second consecutive quarter, and that's why shares are down like 10% in extended trading. So some interesting pieces of news. I just wanted to call them out before the market opens. Now let's talk about some data. I want to remind everyone that at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the consumer confidence report coming out. The consensus is around 104, so we want this to be very close to that. And then we also have existing home sales also coming out a little bit later. So at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, watch for some volatility, and we'll see how it ends up from there. And then as time goes on, I just want to mention that at 11:30 a.m., we have the 17-week bill auction. That's going to be important too. We'll see what volatility that causes. Then we have the 20-year bond auction coming out at 1 p.m. So that being said, guys, we're going to be watching to see what happens with all of this. We're going to be watching to see how this data affects us. At 10 o'clock a.m. specifically, I think that's going to be like the most impactful range of data that's coming out. We'll see how consumer confidence affects us. And so far, I just want to break down the charts now. So as far as SPY goes, I just want to mention that this thing was due for a little retracement. I actually said this yesterday. We could backtest the 473 area, 473.8 or so, and that's very close to where we've been. But here's the thing. We could still push back up and get higher. We just have to watch and see how it reacts to this support. We're basically testing this range between 473.8 to about 473.3. Watch that range because this is where SPY had its little breakout. So this is where our breakout area happened to be. So from where this wick happens to be, we're basically retesting that area. We're going to be watching to see if we bounce off of this or if we just continue lower. So what I think is ultimately, regardless of where we drop to, the market is still bullish, and I think SPY is still going to pump to much higher levels as time goes on. I think that this is based off Fibonacci retracements and other historical highs. So just to be blunt, I just want to use this just to show you SPY could kind of like come down like this, chop around, and slowly try to climb its way back up. This would not surprise me if you use something like this going into like the end of the week, and we just continue to hold up like that. I could see it kind of coming down just a little bit more just to test this breakout. But I think that it's going to hold up for the most part. If we lose 473, that's when we could turn a little bit more bearish and come back down to like this gap fill area at 471.8. We're going to be watching 473 as key support. If we lose that, it could sink a little bit more before we bounce later on. If we continue to hold up and bounce, then we could still see this thing push back up. I think that it doesn't matter if we drop a little bit or even like more. Ultimately, I think that the market's going to bounce. We're going to see some upside. So if we lose 473, we'll fill the gap and then bounce and still push back up. If we don't lose, we just kind of like hover in the 473.5 area, then we could just bounce again and just continue to push up later on. So ultimately, I'm still bullish, guys. Ultimately, I think the market will bounce regardless of whether we drop a little bit more or less. So make sure you watch your levels and watch and see how the market goes from there. On the QQQ is also dropping just a little bit, but we're still holding 408. Going to be watching to see how it responds to this. Now, if we get a little balance off this 408 level, watch and see if we retest this breakout area at 407.7. If we bounce from here, we could see this thing just continue to hold up as time goes on and make our way back up towards that 410 area. And that's going to be very interesting. But at the same time, I just want to mention that if we manage to bounce from here, we're going to be watching to see if this support holds us at 408. And then we also have this gap to fill technically now, so we're gapping down. Can we watch and see if that's the case? If we lose 408, then we have this gap to fill down here at 406. We could retrace just a little bit more before we see this thing slowly rebound going into Friday. So my view is simple, guys. We could retrace just a bit and just kind of trade sideways into 408, or we could retrace a little bit more if we lose 408 to come down to 406. Regardless of whether we come down or not, the market's going to bounce, and I still think that the buyers will step in. And I think that by Friday, we're going to see the market continue to soar. And I wouldn't necessarily count the bulls out from here. When it comes to Nvda has come down just a little bit, but the thing is, it's still holding support at this 488 area. Now, it actually barely dropped. We're almost exactly where we were yesterday. We have a double bottom like formation. If Nvidia could try to break and hold 495, there's going to be potential for it to get back up closer to 500. We also have this gap to fill above. Now, if we fail to break this this area right over here, if we end up breaking below 488, I would turn a little bit more bearish. I could see it retracing towards 482. So if we lose 488, I'm bearish. If we break 495, I could turn a bit more bullish. Right now, I favor that it's going to try to push or make an attempt to try to get back to 495. And we'll see how it tests from there, if it can break that or not. But I believe it definitely has potential to push up higher. We're going to be watching a double bottom like formation and see if this move fails or not. For Tesla's kind of flat. It's not really doing a whole lot. Still holding up nicely. We could see Tesla just attempt to hold up for the time being. Make sure you watch this yellow trend line of support. It's going to be at this 254 area. Does Tesla come down like that, then just like rebound, just for instance like this? Or does Tesla just barely drop and just try to continue up like this? So basically we have a range on Tesla. This yellow trend line is going to be our support. We have resistance at 258, which is where we have the orange trend line. Tesla could kind of like retrace a bit, and I think it's going to eventually try to retest 258, and we'll have to see if this breaks. If we could break this, you could even argue we're forming like a wedge right here, an even smaller wedge like this, if we end up getting the break, right? And then we could draw out like a much better looking breakout. So this is forming like a wedge. If we break this orange trend line area, this 258 zone, we could break out easily into the 260s. We're going to be watching to see if that ends up being the case. We're just going to be very patient nonetheless. In my opinion, Tesla's bullish overall. Regardless if we come down to the yellow trend line, I think we're overall just uptrending. And I think eventually we're going to break 260 by Friday. So I still anticipate upside for Tesla. I think it's holding up nicely. I will turn a little more bearish if we end up losing first off 252, then 250. I could turn a bit more bearish, but for now, I don't see Tesla losing 250 yet, unless we get a bad piece of news. As of right now, we're looking more bullish, and I still favor the upside. Looking at Aapl, in my opinion, still looks decent because even though it's coming down just a bit, it's still okay because we still have an inverse head and shoulders like structure. If we lose support at 195.5, I'd become a little bit more concerned, and then we could see Aapl start retracing back down to the 194 area or back into this like little channel that we have over here. We need to see if we have to see if it ends up breaking down or not. If we continue to hold up, you want to see it break 197 to turn even more bullish. We're basically stuck between 196 and 197. Losing 195.5 could turn us bearish, and then breaking 197 could turn us bullish. Right now, I think Apple's going to kind of hover for some time, but I think ultimately it has upside coming. So I wouldn't be surprised if Apple does something like this, where we just like we retrace just a bit more, we kind of like uh, see another reaccumulation, and we just slowly uptrend, and we try to break 197, and then by Friday we just get one more nice push like this, and we slowly make our way up, because this is still resembling a nice accumulation. And I could see this in wrist and shoulders play out off this break from this little channel down here. So could we come back down to retest the channel and then bounce? Yes, I think ultimately the odds do favor a bounce in Apple by Friday. But we'll just have to see how low it goes. Does this thing try to hold 196, or do we retrace to 195.5 and then bounce? We'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, that's what I have for this video. Hopefully this video was helpful and insightful for everyone out there. Please remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.